How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, today we're going to look at two recent videos that were released by the news. One is the escape out of PA, which we have not visited on this channel just yet. And the other is we are going to revisit the death of one of our fallen heroes, John Durm. Now, granted, this is not an effort to Monday Night Quarterback, but I want to revisit it because I want to have Russ Hamilton on, and together we're going to develop a different perspective because, again, you know, it's about just sharing information as it's received and with Russ's input as well. Again, it's an effort for people to learn, to be more aware of their surroundings and obviously what the inmates are capable of. Now, granted, when we see these videos, me and Russ will ask ourselves two questions, and that's the key here. Basically, you know, we'll look at the layout and basically say, you know, what allows for this to happen, because we know that layout matters, but we also know that there's human error, but we're not quick to put blame on the human error side just yet, because we also know that there's a lot of situations that we're facing right now that we need to take into account. That's the key. So we would like to not to minimize people's responsibility, but we want to also make people aware that there are these concerns. And that's why I believe me and Russ's input, as well as Joe the other day, matters. Now, for me, when I look at a problem, and I'm sure Russ will be the same way when he comes on, is the first thing we look at is basically the overall staffing. That's one thing that's definitely going to come into our mind. So it's a question that we ask, like, you know, we have posts that are expected to be filled, and we know exactly what post directly relates to that concern. So one of our questions will always be, what's the staffing like in these areas? And then we're also always going to ask what the oversight is like. And then at that point, we kind of move from there. And I think this will be a great dialogue. We're going to, again, revisit the one with the fallen deputy. But guys, if you get a chance, please, you know, watch this to completion, because sometimes as we develop the dialogue, the best part of the dialogue may come towards the end, because it just, as we move forward, everything just accumulates into what tends to be really good final thoughts. Now, guys, if you haven't, please check out my sponsor, American Military University. If you guys are looking for a degree to seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk, and I believe they are starting to develop better programs for those that are in the corrections profession. So when they look to make an effort to bring experience into the classroom, it will help motivate those who really know how to walk the walk to teach the students who may be our leaders tomorrow. So please, guys, check out American Military University. Also, Inmate Manipulation Decoded is on the market. It's available on Amazon. Guys, this book sells like crazy. I'm very happy with it. It's available on Amazon. As I said, the link's in the description. But if you guys get a chance, want to utilize this for training or whatnot, you know, this book is truly my experiences, and it has helped many avoid the game of manipulation. And we also have, it's making its rounds, How to Succeed in Corrections, published by Blue 360 Media. Link to that is in the description, guys. This is being used right now in training. I mean, I'm seeing people walking with it. The other day, someone said they got the book. The book weighs 3 pounds. I mean, it's designed to also be an interactive book. I mean, not only are there lessons learned, but there's also blank journal pages. So you could write next to it and add your lessons. And if you have students and they have the book, they could write their thoughts, and it's just a way to collectively grow. But I think the cool thing about this all is they're passages, they're short, they're quick, and it's enough to get the dialogue going. And I'm currently working on my book for rookies. What I'm going to do, and I'm going to just make sure I reiterate this, is I'm going to complement what's already out there. So when you get the rookie book, it's going to be kind of like an addition to the other books that we have on the market. I'm not going to re-explore topics that have already been discussed. I would want us to go back and kind of look at the books that were already there, because there are going to be people that are going to look for new material. So I'm going to bust my ass, come up with 50 more tips, keep the same journal type format, and then you can give it out to the rookies. But mind you, the book is meant to complement what's already there. So if you need stuff on inmate interaction, stuff like that, you'd want to go back to this book and this book as well. I just want to try to keep the thoughts fresh. Okay, let's get Russ on. What's up, Russ?
Anthony, It's very early here.
Oh, that's right. Hey, you promised me, Russ, though, and you never
I
failed.
did promise you. That's why I'm sitting here, dude.
You are a man of your word. So, and
Oh,
I know this will wake you up, Russ, because this is your thing. We're going to be reviewing 2 videos. I mean, this is
yes,
your thing, Russ. This is your thing.
it is. It is. So I think I'm going to have some. I think I'm going to have some good input onto this. This is one of those things. Both the escape and the tragedy in the death and felonious killing of Deputy Durham are things that are just important to me to just bring that to the correctional staff, and to try and do things where these kinds of things hopefully don't happen. Prevention, preemption, and being proactive in the things we do can stop things like this. So let's get into it.
And I think also by us looking at it from our perspective, we let people know what it is that we're looking at and the reasons why we're looking at it. I mean, that's the key. So this will be the first time we visit the escape out of PA, which again, I want people to know it's the second escape from that facility. The other one was May 19th, which made headlines as well. So maybe we could briefly touch into that. But our focus right now is what we see in the video. That's the key, because even though we get a lot of information sent our way and updates, we just haven't been able to verify that. So we'll just go what we initially see, which I believe will be questions that people, if they were to look at this video, if it was popped right on the desk, these would be questions with those with experience would look at. And Russ, I don't think you introduced yourself just yet.
Oh, yes, of course. My name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I've also been, after my career in California Department of Corrections, I was a senior juvenile correctional officer. And now I currently work as a case manager for a local county jail and a local county probation department for a private company. And we do reentry and rehabilitation for inmates and probationers.
Yes. And Russ, one last thing. How's your Keepers of Chaos going, your Facebook group?
It's great. It's growing. The really great thing about Keepers is people are looking to get some input. Sometimes I feel like some of the correctional facilities, departments around the country are not as good about training their people as they should. Lots of people come into Keepers right now and asking advice, and I have thousands and thousands and thousands of seasoned correctional veterans on there. So come on over if you work in corrections, and we're happy to answer anything.
Yes. Now, guys, we're going to go right to these videos. First video is 58 seconds. It's a pretty popular video. It was just released, and the other video is about 14 minutes. Again, I'm going to show both videos in its entirety. And then, as we talk, I could always go back and kind of discuss it with the video playing. Okay, so let's first go to the first video. Let me go ahead and put that in. All right, hold on, guys. Let me make that a little bit bigger. All right. All right, so this one's 58 seconds. I'm going to play it real quick.
Thank you.
All right. So Russ, let's get your insight first on this video. So let me go ahead and bring us back in. I mean, this is just, I guess, just a quick video. Okay, so let's say this video gets put on your desk. What are the first things you're asking? What are the first things you're looking at? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so there were several things that happened during the video that I saw there, and then there were a number of things that made me. Oops, am I back out?
No, you're in.
There we go. Oh, I'm sorry, my screen flashed. So there were a couple of things that happened afterwards. Only that I read in the media that, kind of made me pause and go, I wonder what that's about. So when I see this guy, get out there and go up there, I'm wondering, why someone hasn't looked up and gone, hey, why is there an opening up there? How did he get through? Exactly what's going on. The other thing that I see is, down there in the opposite corner on my screen here, I only see a shadow. In other versions of it that I've seen, you can actually see the inmate. It looks very much to me, even though it was poo-pooed later, I think that he was the lookout. And I also think that he was looking at perhaps a distraction that was going on the yard. We know that they fired an individual that was up above this, that was, in a tower of some type. Don't have a good idea of exactly what that tower could see, but I can tell you I've worked many, many tower positions, and it's not possible to catch everything that happens generally from that. So there may have been an advent in which, maybe they caught that individual sleeping. Maybe there was, maybe he had a clear, unobstructed view of the roof line where he should have seen that person going across. But if his attention is supposed to be on the yard at any time, if he's not there strictly for escape control, then, anything could happen down there. The last thing that I'll say is this, that could be a component of why that individual might have got into some type of trouble is it looks to me that when that inmate climbs up there, there was no hesitation on his part. I think there's a high degree of likelihood that he may have done prep work and or practiced that move going up there. So that's what I see in the video. There's a possibility maybe he might have even stashed, some supplies up there. Maybe he stashed a tool so he could deal with, bits of barbed wire or bars that were up there. I don't think that was the first time that he had crawled up there. It's possible, but it looked to me like he instantly knew exactly where to place his feet, exactly how long it was going to take him to get up there. And so that's my expert opinion on what was going on right there.
Yeah, and remember, guys, they had an escape May 19th. It looks like, the inmate was kind of able to do the same thing. So the biggest concern here is I think that area is a concern. I think it could be a blind spot. I think the way the walls are structured, it makes it very easy for an inmate to climb up to the top. I mean, I'm wondering if you think, Russ, if you would agree, if there's a way to maybe look at that structure and maybe do something where that can now be, I would look to try to close that off. I mean, to me, that would be my first thing is I see that there's a blind spot here. Is it possible for us to close that off? And because I don't even know if that's even the entry for the yard. I mean, I don't know the exact layout, but would you look to think that maybe this is a spot that we could close off that inmates should not have access to at this point?
Yeah, I think that, the area that he climbed up into, I don't know why, supposedly, now this is what I've heard, is that they went up there and they added additional barbed wire. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Did they add just barbed wire? Did they add concertina wire? Concertina wire and barbed wire are great, but, ultimately they can be defeated with tools and things like that. Not that it's easy for inmates, hopefully, to get their hands on those kind of tools, but they can be defeated. So why they didn't, weld some type of grate or mesh up there to really, truly seal it off and make it impossible to, in a short period of time, defeat that. I don't know. Did they just decide, hey, we'll just throw up this little bit and call that good? Were they trying to, keep it within the budget? What's really going on there? I think that they should have had people with fresh eyes there on the ground, actually looking at the entire perimeter and asking, are there ways that this perimeter can be defeated by these inmates after the first escape, not after the second one, but after the first? And truly, they should have actually been doing things like that before. Prevention and preemption and being proactive are what we're supposed to be about. We're supposed to be able to, go in there. I feel like I could go into any unit, any facility in the world and find concerns. So, they should have definitely been able to do that at their own facility. Why didn't they address it?
Yeah, and I want to add something else to it too. Let me just so if a video like this came my way and I was management, and I just want to share it again just one more time. Um let me we don't need the volume for it. There's no sound really. First thing I would look at is I would love to look at the oversight, who are the people that could see this inmate do what they've done, whether it's direct vision from the tower or whether it's people on camera, because there always should be some level of backup. Because again, I don't even know how many people are in this yard and how easily could it be for the tower to get distracted because their focus is somewhere else. And then there's also, I do look at, because I know human error occurs, I know sometimes the system fails. I look at how long it took for us to discover the issue, and then go ahead and move forward with all action we need to do to make sure that we, start the efforts to move forward and catch this individual. I wanted to ask you something about that, Russ. When you have a mass yard, again, I don't know how many people were in this yard. I think that would be something that would be worth noting. But I don't know how many people were in this yard. But can you talk about your experiences in overseeing yard, let's say at San Quentin, and how complicated it could be to kind of look at everyone?
It's very difficult, especially when you have a really active yard, and you'll have positions, above yard. We were fortunate at San Quentin, to have lethal overhead a lot of times, like even in our dining halls and things like that. But it's impossible for a human being, especially if there's just one of you up there, to see everything that's going on. And I'll relate a quick story. This did not happen to me from an elevated position, but it just goes to show you that you can't see everything. This happened to me, 10 feet in front of me, on a yard where I probably had 300 inmates, and I was probably, 10 feet away from them. And anyway, everyone was just intermingling, and I could see that something was about to happen. The yard had that feel, and I was trying to watch everything. And the next thing I know, I heard, kind of off to my right, 4 or 5 inmates shout my name, and I turned, and I mean, that's all it took. And then when I turned back, all the inmates directly in front of me had spread back, and there was an inmate, literally 10 feet in front of me, and he was just staring at me. And as I watched, I looked, and he didn't have a shirt on. And I looked, and, down near his hip, I could suddenly see something start opening up, and it just opened up from the bottom all the way to the top up to his face. And he was just started bleeding out right there. So if a person on the ground can't see well what's going on 10 feet in front of them, it's impossible to expect someone up in a tower to catch something like that. So there's distractions. You have to attend to some of your needs, like eating, going to the bathroom. So I don't know if it's fair to say, oh, you should have caught, something that happened on 5 seconds of tape, but also be aware that we don't know what his field of vision was, in relation to what that camera was doing. That's not something that we're able to address because we just simply don't know. So I think that there was another facet to it. I think that they might have had him, just goofing off from a camera point somewhere else where they could see what he was doing, or that inmate maybe had repeatedly done that, and they thought that he should have caught that with the inmate either practicing or preparing the way to escape. So that's my best guess, and it's a little bit, like I say, it's kind of guesswork on my part, but that's what I see when I see that film.
Yeah, and guys, distractions do happen. But you have to, but when you have a distraction, you're going to have to be able to explain on your end why that distraction was emergent. Because again, if you're at that tower and you got inmates distracting you on small little dialogue, you're not going to be able to justify why the hell you weren't paying attention to whatever else is happening. That's why, again, very wary of small talk, because, that's not going to be enough to justify why, well, I'm chatting with Russ here about the Raiders game or football or whatever it is, and I got a guy, climbing up the wall. So if I was management, the oversight of that area, but I'm looking at, do I have someone that was negligent? Or is it just there was something else going on? And if there was something that was emergent going on, let's go look at the logbook, or let's go look at whatever the reports are to see where or what this person was doing, why this individual was climbing on the wall. So again, this video is pretty quick. I mean, if I had to kind of ask for more, because that's one of the things we want to do, is what questions we would look to ask. That's why we're kind of doing this video. So again, I want to look at the oversight, and I want to look at, what questions we need to ask. One of the questions for me is how many people were sent out in yard that day. That's important for me. Obviously, we simply talked about what the tower officer was doing. I also want to look at, and Russ, maybe you could explain this more, any secondary feeds, because again, we talked about corrections in my rookie book we have coming out. Everything in corrections is layered when it comes to security. There are fail safes in play. So granted, yes, I am going to hold that tower directly responsible or accountable, yes. But having said that, because I know there's human error, there should be some other feel safe. I'm thinking some levels, some cameras or something that do have some oversight over that yard. But Russ, what's your thoughts on maybe another feed over that yard, especially in that blind spot?
Okay, so the blind spot is a problem. What I think is more of a problem, though, is when you identify an area like that and you say, okay, it's a blind spot, so let's put another feed on it. Let's make sure that an officer has to stare at it 24/7. You're setting yourself up for failure. You're obviously, putting yourself in a position where everything has to function perfectly. That's not what we want to have happen in corrections. We want fail safe and backups. I think that the area should have been removed from concern by, building it appropriately, putting in mesh, welding something up there. Not saying, oh, we need to look at it harder, because we saw how quick that inmate, moved from being able to be seen to being out. And so if it only takes a moment of, distraction, we're not taking into account the way things should be run in there. We're just hoping for the best. When you look back at what happened and the way they addressed the first escape, that's especially, brought in under question. And you're going, why are you guys so reticent to actually address the problem? Is it that you're completely blinded? Do you have this air of, routine and complacency? Well, that's the first escape that we've had in 26 years or whatever it is. And so is that our justification for not doing anything? We're okay to go another 26 years. So I think that, we have to be looking at whether our solutions, are on point or not. And we have to understand that there's always going to be a chance for, something to slip through. That's why you have to make sure that it's so hard for that first hard point to get past, because, once that guy was out, he was gone.
Right. And I want to add something. In the book here, I have, don't sacrifice the important over the urgent. So after an issue like this happens, an escape, I mean, we can even go back to May, and then obviously we got the secondary one. You're always going to have the pressure to open up yard, because there's always going to be people from the outside pushing for normal operations, because they're fighting for the rights of the inmates who feel, these lawyers or family members may feel, well, why is my loved one being punished because someone escaped? We got to get yard. Yard is always a big thing in corrections, because it's considered a right. You must give them at least 1 hour outside of their cell, however you want to define that. I mean, that could be in a rec area, that could be outside, whatever it is. And there's always going to be that push to get them out and going. So I want people to realize that sometimes facilities, as they're investigating, they start getting the pressure to open up, yard or whatnot. And unfortunately, what they do is they sacrifice the important for the urgent because of the outside pressure. And that to me is when we start making mistakes. I think that when you had this incident in May, they had the consultants come, whatever it is. They went for the quick fix because there could have been some pressure to kind of get the prisoner or the jail back to normal operations. I'm hoping at this point here, this yard becomes inactive and it's locked down for as long as it takes to determine what the specific issue is. Because at the end of the day, even if we did have a officer in the tower that didn't do his job, let's just say that's the case, I still had an inmate that was able to manage to climb the wall. So even if I have people that are still diligent at doing their job, my main focus right now is I had an inmate climb the wall. So I got to focus on, I got to make sure that doesn't happen again. That to me, if I had to take the priority of the two, because they're both important, don't get me wrong, but believe it or not, the officer watching it is the reaction measure. The person doing it and able to do it is where I want to put a lot of my energy towards. I want to put a lot of my energy to closing that shit off and stopping whatever I can from that happening again. What's your thoughts on that, Russ, before we move over to the next incident?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to prioritize the things that are going to be the most effective at stopping anything and everything. And what is the real point of a perimeter officer or a tower officer or whatever that specific position was? It's usually to watch the yard and to stop incidents as they emerge. Secondarily, or maybe primarily, because I don't know what that place looks like, is to stop people, from incursions coming in over the fence or going out over the fence. But those things might happen much more quickly, as we saw. So it's one of those things is what is that tower officer there for? What is it that you're trying to stop? What is your expectation about what that person is able to do in a 4-second period, like we saw right there? What can you see or not see in 4 seconds?
Yeah, guys, I want to know human error, mistakes. Obviously, in corrections, people view mistakes based on the consequence. But again, a human error is human error. It's just in our end, we have to be very vigilant because human error could lead to something like this. But I want people to realize something. Inmates could be very innovative. Now, we know that there was an incident in May 19th, and, it's like, okay, you fool me once, you may get it. You fool me twice, that's on me. So the agency or this facility is going to be under a lot of scrutiny because this happened already. I mean, I've dealt with incidences in my career where I couldn't believe an inmate could do something that I seen. But the next time around, I did whatever I can because I know even if there's a small percentage of it happening again, I know it could happen. So once you know it could happen, you got to put all your resources towards preventing that, that 1% because it already happened. And there's no way you're going to be able to justify allowing that to happen again because that's where the liability comes in. That's where everybody starts looking at you and saying, well, this happened before. What did you do at that point? Like, okay, we know the first time it happened and, kind of unique situation. So, yeah, it's sad what happened, but maybe there's a level of forgiveness to some extent, but you're not going to get it off the second time because, again, I know last time you said inmates were innovative, but this time you knew it happened. So what did you do in preparation in case this thing could happen again? And the last thing you want, kind of what Russ you said before is, well, we didn't do a lot towards it because, this is a rare occasion. No, it's not going to happen. Once it happens and it's in the books that it's happened, it's happened. That Russ and I know that there's no excuse anymore. All right. So the second video is 14 minutes. We're going to watch it in its entirety. And I know some people may have seen the video last time with me and Joe. Me and Russ are going to add to that perspective, so it'll be a little bit different than what it was last time, but I still want to show the video again, and then we'll kind of have it broken down in segments. But before we start the video, Russ, you had something you wanted to say? I'm sorry.
I wanted to add something at the beginning of this, and I won't talk about yet about what people are about to see. But when I did my Substack on it the other day, I felt that I needed to add into this that, I hate the words that I'm about to write. People have to look at this and understand that this has to be about a learning experience. I pay the greatest tribute and homage to this man who poured out the full measure of his cup. But there's something to be learned here. And people are people need to take this under advisement and see exactly what not to do. And that's all I'm going to say right now, but I'll say more after we break this down.
Right. Okay. So let me get into this video real quick, guys. I'm going to mute my end. All right, guys. So we're going to play the video real quick so you guys can see, and we'll kind of give a play-by-play. Me and Russ will just exchange some quick thoughts to give our perspective. But again, it's going to be a little bit of an addition to what we already did in the last show, but it definitely is going to be a different perspective. So kind of wait for the video to play out. So bear with us. So we're going to start first, Russ, from taking him out of his cell. So what should be done beforehand, Russ? Are we doing a strip? How do we do a strip?
So he should be stripped, and he should have an exchange of clothing nowhere near his cell so that he can't sneak something in. We can't tell what's been done before this perspective that we're first seeing.
Right now, mind you, we are understaffed here. So right off the bat, we would want 2 officers, one to physically have their hands on the individual, and the one to kind of make sure, maybe be in a front to kind of make sure the scene is safe. And like Russ said, we could definitely do a strip by doing a visual through the cell, and then we would put his hands through the cuff port to get him secured and make sure the escort is as safe as possible. But Russ, first complacent behavior, what do you see?
Yeah, you've got the deputy here with his back to the inmate. He's not paying good attention. Now he's going to put himself into a position of vulnerability in the method in which they apply the restraint gear here. This is not a good procedure. This should be done with the inmate inside a temporary holding cell with the officer on the outside of that cell.
Sorry, I had to stretch a little bit. And Russ, we also talked about the kneeling, right? He would be kneeled on a heightened surface facing against the wall with the other officer putting kind of his hands around his shoulder and the back of his neck, not to choke, but just to judge for movement. And then the other officer should be able to place the shackles, because you are an extreme level of vulnerability when it comes to right there, putting those shackles on and bending over. And look at the leverage, Russ, how he can grab the, he push off the wall, and look at the freedom between his hands and his belly.
Yeah, the fact is that those things should be much more cinched up than that already. This is not good application.
And I would like to see a black box, to be honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. But that aside, there's a lot of issues in that cuffing procedure there.
All right.
Restraint procedure.
Right, and I don't know when he receives his weapon, but he does. But usually the procedures, once you receive a weapon, you usually distance yourself from the inmate. That could be why he's in front. But having said that, there's tough here because you only got one staff member, and you need someone to physically have their hands on that individual and also to watch the back of the person in front. But right here, Russ, right from what you see, how dangerous is it to have this individual behind you?
Yeah, this is unfortunately, this is a good example of complacency. And he doesn't give any instructions to the inmate. He does all of this, with his back to the inmate, not good situational awareness. This is, I hate to say this is very lackadaisical in what this individual's doing.
Right now, I want to mention, guys, he's going to have to leave the area, obviously, to begin his trip. And this is why I believe it's impulsive later on. But as he's driving, I've done this before, is if I'm waiting too long at the Sally Port because maybe no one's paying attention, I put my lights on. And the reason why I'm kind of looking into that is because I'm escorting right now a dangerous inmate. I am. Now, I don't know if that's their protocol, that they don't open up the doors until someone flashes the lights. I don't know, but I know that in my position, if I was waiting too long, I would turn the lights on in the vehicle to try to get someone's attention to be looking at the screen to allow me exit. So I'm hoping that maybe there's a protocol to turn the lights on. But if not, that could be a sign that nobody was watching oversight of this escort in that Sallyport area. Now, Russ, we're actually going into the hospital now. What are some of the concerns you see? I know they do have a private room for them here when they bring an inmate in. But what are your thoughts when they start bringing the inmate into the hospital?
Okay. You'll see, first of all, that it's almost adequate bringing him through that door. Not the way I would have done it, though. But as he goes through these doors, he just starts to get in front of the guy more and more. And he's not giving him directions, not having him face away while he opens the door. You're going to see the same thing. He proceeds through the doors first. And this is really putting himself at a disadvantage. And then as they come up to the elevator door here, he doesn't have the inmate far enough back in case someone is in there. When you go in, you should always have the inmate face the back of the door. And that doesn't happen here. And as he comes back out, again, there's just kind of a lackadaisical kind of way of doing this. Bringing them in, you should have two people so one of you can search the room in case something got stashed. I don't know how high the security is here. Maybe that's not a concern, but it would always be a concern to me.
And Russ,
you see him here. He's fiddling. He's fiddling with this stuff. Hard to say if it's just comfort or if he's trying to gauge how fast he can get it off.
Right. And Russ, there always should be eyes looking in just in case they start to fidget. I'm going to make a guess here that no one likes the shackles on the ankles, so it could be an effort of discomfort, and that's what makes me believe that this was impulsive, because I don't think he was manipulating the cuffs there. I think he was just moving around because they were resting on his ankle. But either way, I know you have mentioned it in the past, the moment you see him touching the cuffs, because you would be watching the person who's shackled, you would be telling him, hey, what's going on? Why are you touching the cuffs? If you got to do something with them, let us know, and we'll work with you a little bit, but you do not touch those cuffs.
Right. Always give them directions and expect that they be obeyed instantly. I mean, we should not be messing around here. It's not a negotiation.
Yep. And now it's the return, and this is where, obviously, I believe that they had a deputy that was getting ready to come in, and instead of them closing the door to make sure this one inmate secured, someone left the door open, which is what gave this inmate the impulsiveness to just go ahead. I'm going to take out this deputy and try to run for freedom. I always was taught Sallyport's controlled effort. Get one in, control, get them where they need to be, and then get the next person in controlled. I don't think that was done. I'll get Russ.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and you'll see here as this part begins, what you always do when you get up to the van, before you let that inmate anywhere near getting out, have them show you the shackles. You always check those coming in, coming out. I don't care that you're back in the Sallyport and you feel safe again. Obviously, it's not safe, and now you're gonna see the final result of the amount of complacency here.
Yep. And you know what? As he's returning here, where's the backup officers that should come in when he announced his entrance to help?
Yep. He walks in front, and that's the end.
Yeah, and Russ, I think he knew that the door was open, because it's going to show you here that there's a black vehicle that's driving up to drop off somebody. And I think that instead of the officer wanting to close it and open it again, he left it open. And then I still think the inmate came out, saw the opportunity, and then went out the exit. Because as you can see, there's an exit and an entrance. And I think that, and here's another thing, he has time to get the keys. He has time. I mean, this was 2 minutes. Where's the oversight? Where's the response? Who's on the camera watching this? Because this guy is cash.
Yeah, it should have never come down to being on the camera if they're that understaffed. They should have had people there with him. And that's why somebody somewhere along the way, we know, was fired for this. They weren't real clear on why, but I bet it's because he was out by himself and he should have had one or even two other people with him. With a guy like that, this is the police officer coming in to drop someone off.
Yeah, and I kind of muted the sound, but as we know, this is my concern. That where he came in, it was open. So I think that the inmate noticed that it was open and then just took advantage of that. And again, the fact that there's not even someone on site at this point responding, that it took this officer here to notice the incident and then get the response that they needed, which again makes me ask, where the hell is the oversight that should be looking at this camera? At least some type of, angel in the sky monitoring what's going on. But I think at this point, let me see if I can close this off. All right. So, hey, Russ, any kind of closing thoughts related to what we just saw in the most recent video?
Yeah, all along the way, you see in this case that this deputy was complacent in the way he conducted both putting on the chains as well as the path he took through the doors, the fact that he had his back to the inmate. And then upon return, and I've actually said this in other videos, is the first thing that you do before you dismount that inmate is you check those chains. You first check them visually, and then as the inmate comes out, you stop them and you start feeling around for it. And in this case, it was just, offload the inmate, turn my back to him, and be killed. And so you have to have an awareness when you're out there doing these things. And, I see maybe guys aren't always comfortable giving inmates these kind of directions. Maybe you just take it for granted that these restraints are not going to fail when you turn your back to the inmate. And yet time and time again, it's these areas where you're outside the secure perimeter or you're just coming back into it in these sally ports that we experience these failures where staff are killed right there in the sally port. And I can show you lots of examples, from YouTube where that occurs. And so, up your game. And, if you see an issue inside your facility that you can address, write that up. The first thing that I saw when they were applying these restraints is I'm thinking, well, where's the holding cell to apply the restraints? And that's just a little area. The inmate goes inside, the door is secured. He puts his hands out. You put those shackles on him. He turns counterclockwise until you can grab that chain again. You lock that chain. You make it secure. You're able to tell that, hey, now he doesn't have his hands. Maybe you might have an extra set of locks when he comes back out to apply to give you even more. And then you have him kneel down and you have someone stand behind you so that if things start to go wrong, you can take him down. Now he can't use his hands. All right. And now if he's kneeling, it's easy to just, to reach down there and grab the pant leg and pull him back. The last thing that I want to say that really troubled me, but I can't tell for sure, is I don't think that they changed him out of that jumpsuit. I don't know if they changed him out of the shoes that he had on. That's one more thing where you have to spend a lot of time to make sure that jumpsuit doesn't have something funky in it. So you either spend the time or you change him out. And I would always change him out because you don't know what little tiny lockpick they might have managed to get into that thing or something else.
Yeah,
so
I would have loved to have seen the video before the inmate was brought out to see if there was some level of a strip being done. Because again, sometimes we'll just do the strip visually through the window. And then before they come out, they, will be cuffed up just for the escort. And then if there was a different escort officer or team, they would then do a strip as well because they're taking responsibility. Some of the concerns I see is that one, it's tough for us to watch a video and try to understand what's the best practice for one officer when there's not. There should always be two or maybe even a supervisor with that as well. So we're trying to figure out, how's the best way. But the best way is literally you got to have the proper staffing. There's just too much vulnerability at that level. And the other concern is if this was direct oversight and people are watching the videos, then it makes me look like there's a complacent culture there for someone not to look at that video and say, yo, what is he doing? And then run out. If I was a supervisor or somebody looking at that video, I'm like, yo, my brother, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Hold on. Because as I'm watching the video, I have a concern. And I know me, if I was sitting there and I was watching that video as a supervisor, within a matter of a few seconds, I'm going to run right out, catch that. I said, what are you doing? Come here for a second. What are you doing? Where's your partner? If there is a partner, or what are you doing walking so ahead? The only concern I also have here is that the reason why it's tough to evaluate is technically trips are made for at least two. You got the officer that may not have a weapon, that's got their physical hands on this individual the best way they can. And then you got the officer that's got the weapon just in case, but that has to be at a distance. So this officer, at one point, I would like to say he's protecting himself and the weapon by keeping himself distant. But then I also say he becomes complacent with that, because as he's doing escorts, out of the hospital or to the hospital, he becomes very close. And then if the inmate wanted to, he could grab the weapon. So having said that, I feel that there's definitely some complacent behaviors, but at all time, guys, you gotta have two officers. And if there's not two officers, the trip doesn't go out. Now, in the last video we did, we explained some of the changes that the sheriff made. He mentioned switching the uniforms, which I think is great, because not everybody knows what the inmates that have done, the ones that they're transporting out. And I love that idea by changing the color. I love you better really stress the need for a medical trip. We're not just sending people out randomly. I thought that was a great idea. But here I think, and Russ, maybe in your closing thought, you could explain this a little bit, but for me, it's just letting people know that, yes, we lost a hero. Don't get me wrong. And it's not to minimize that, but I really want to showcase that. And again, not to minimize what the person's done. We're again, not taking away responsibilities from the individual who took this hero's life. But guys, there's a lot of complacent behaviors that could be built on just routine or how well I know that individual, that inmate. And you should never allow yourself to get to that point where you feel that comfortable having a murderer right behind you, or even bending over doing those shackles. So I don't know, man. It is a tough one to watch. And again, guys, also that ending where, we're waiting for the other vehicle to come in. Look at that. By just waiting for the other vehicle to come in, you could have an inmate that didn't even have the plan to do this, because they could have been dialoguing. We don't know. And all of a sudden, just to show you that these people are very impulsive in nature, he sees the opportunity and he jumps, because all he sees is freedom. And he jumps, because I think the big part of the problem here is that failure to close the door and secure it before you let that inmate out. Any closing thoughts, Russ, as we wrap up the video?
Yeah, the last few seconds that you see after that inmate is brought out of the back of the van, and you see the deputy there, crosses in front of the inmate, dealing with a piece of equipment, and the inmate, all he has to do is reach over him, and he's got that. And that's the end. And it's the end of a string of failures, though, that happened all along the way. You start to develop all kinds of habits when you're handling some of these people. And I'll tell you, I've handled some of the most dangerous inmates in America. And if you don't develop really good habits so that you're doing the same thing every time in order to backstop what your situational awareness is, you'll eventually make a mistake that's probably going to get you hurt. You might make a mistake that's going to get you killed. As a tribute to Deputy Durham here, be aware that you need to go the extra mile in both your training and your awareness level, and let his death fulfill a purpose, which is to make sure that it doesn't happen to someone else. Make sure that it doesn't happen to you, most of all.
Yeah, and guys, that's the key. I mean, that's why we're actually doing these videos. We want people to be aware of, routine behaviors that, unfortunately should have been recognized when you have that partner, or you have someone that able to catch you before you fall back into what is normal. It's normal for us to want to be more convenient in our actions, be more complacent, but then that's why we have each other's back. Now, sadly, after watching this, it makes you wonder if people don't know what they don't know, and just at a higher level. I mean, granted, if I'm working with Russ and I start to fall back, the moment I put my hand in my pocket, Russ wakes me up, and then I'll do the same for him because we're human. It's going to happen. But the fact that, as a team, we couldn't pick up on this complacent habits, on the fact as a team, we just look how it spreads like a cancer. Everything from how he did the escort to how the Sally Port was controlled. I mean, complacency, if it's not addressed as a cultural concern, it spreads. So my biggest concern is that no one from the team was able to realize something was wrong. Makes me question the operations at a highest of levels. If someone was watching this, as I said, if me and Russ are watching this video and I saw that, I'm running out there as fast as I can. You have to, because we talked about layers of vulnerability. I mean, there's an extreme layer of vulnerability here. And unfortunately, towards the end of the video, the inmate took advantage of that last layer of vulnerability the moment that door was allowed to remain open. And I'm hoping that part is addressed, because that is the moment where I believe that this individual decided to take advantage of. I don't think he's manipulating the cuffs as if this was a plan, because he had the keys. He knew he could take out the officer and get the keys. I think honestly, this was something that he decided in the moment, and unfortunately, this is the end result. So hopefully, we get to learn from this, and basically, we move forward with more confidence in our ability to maintain our effectiveness. As always, guys, the show is Care Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.